man's first and best friend, cyber mastiffs. From the Bald Library, Cerberus. Geraint's chest burned like he'd taken a lungful of kef. He snatched at air as his legs pounded on and on. He wiped away the stinging sweat that cascaded from his brow and into his eyes. At each junction he looked back, coughed for a second, before gulping more air and continuing on. Ever onwards, he ran for his life. At each of his stops, where he could finally hear behind him, he could make out the whooping and laughter of his pursuers. No matter how far or how hard he ran, they were always there, barely a minute behind him, and each time he stopped for even a second, he knew that they were gaining on him. He need only get home. Geraint lurched forward again, now colliding with the tight corridor walls as he went, each strike slowing him that tiny bit, each one making him more fearful, more desperate. He should not have ventured out alone, definitely not so far, but he had no choice. The underways had been picked bare, ranging further and further each day in search of something, anything, he could trade for food. He knew it was inevitable that he would get caught in a tight spot, but he would not leave his home for so long without protection. What point would there be in his risk if he came back to everything stolen, his family dead? Geraint could now see the light of their torches at the end of the tunnels. They were so close. The blazing brigands, youths and gangers of low repute, cowardly and cruel. They had never been involved in any of the true turf wars. Like rats, they scurried in these sub-tunnels and preyed on anyone who they found. On a good day, with a full pack for his las pistol, Geraint would have stood his ground and taught them a lesson. But he had stumbled onto a large pack of them, and he had panicked. Unloaded in an attempt to get them to flee. But when his trigger depressed and nothing came out, they knew the game was afoot. They bounded from their cover and came after him. So he ran, and ran. So close now. He put on a last burst of speed, pumping his arms and legs as fast as they would go. Stumbling forward, he could see the bulk hatch in view. Yet his fatigue was his undoing. One leg caught on the other, and he fell face first into the muck, sliding a few feet, but not nearly enough. The light they carried came up, and the horrors gave off a triumphant cheer. They could see him now scrambling to rise, like jackals in the night. They hollered as they knew they had him. The gangers were but a score of paces from Geraint when they all slid to a halt as the hatch lock twisted and the door opened. Their laughter ended as they saw the two figures silhouetted there. One was tall and lithe, long-haired and holding a wrapped bundle. The thing next to her was the real event. With one word from the newcomer at the door, "Kill!" the gangers gave a screech and ran, as a huge shape came at them like lightning. Slugger shot bounced off the front armor of the beast as it dove over Geraint's head and towards the gangers. Pounding all fours, the metal-clad dog swept forward and tore into them, and the screeches and laughter turned to pleading and pain. The woman came to Geraint and put out her hand. He rose with her aid and looked back as Spot slunk back to them both, more dripping with blood. Geraint patted him on the head and lovingly scratched behind his one organic ear. He winked at his wife and stated, "Well, with their boots alone, we shall eat for a month. With their weapons, we shall eat for a year." They both then broke into nervous, then real and heartfelt laughter as they walked with their cyber mastiff back into their home. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and the puppers In the Warhammer 40k setting, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. If you wish to see the channel flourish and possibly take on bigger topics and get better resources, then like and subscribe and possibly share the video. But also consider joining our Patreon or throwing a one-off tip in the form of a super thanks if I have indeed earned your bounty. And never forget, we also do long videos on mythology, so hit the links in the video description. Now, in the words of Monty Python, let's get on with it. Canis lupus familiaris, our first and finest friend, the dog. Domesticated some 5,000 years before felines, in the cold of night they have stood guardian over our camps, assisted us in hunting for life-sustaining food, been members of our tribes, then more confined family units. Through every step of our cultural and technological development, they have always been there. Our friends, our family, and our staunchest defenders. When the Roman legions conquered the known world, they marched under the eagles. They have fought with us in the trenches, in the fields, and on the beaches. And collectively, they have never, ever betrayed us. Were an extraterrestrial force to invade Earth, then the cats would hide, the donkeys bray, and the cattle look on in stunned silence. But our dogs would be with us in every engagement. Every last holdout of humanity would see their presence. Not that I was affected by seeing the film Terminator whatsoever. And that loyalty, tenacity, and familial ferocity continues 38 or more millennia into the future. Even in the grim darkness of the far future, humanity has its dogs. Most are totally natural and kept as pets and protectors, as they have always been. But as you can probably predict, in the Warhammer universe, there are those who are modified to extenuate their abilities to the nth degree. They are formerly called cyber mastiffs, although, as with most things connected to humanity, they have many a colourful sobriquet. From killer dogs, bullpups, bloodhounds, rending rovers, and razor fangs, all the way to hard cases. The appellations are as myriad as their uses. There are, of course, multiple gradations of cyber mastiff, from a dog with armour semi-permanently sealed onto its hide, usually the product of enthusiastic locals with little technical know-how and even less skill, all the way to the devastating power of the canines, in mostly form only. Creations of the cult mechanicus of Mars, and other forge worlds, of course. So let us investigate the most popular of their kind, the Bloodhound. The hive gangers of Landundar use locally sourced rare chemicals to augment the olfactory attributes of their dogs, making them into super sniffers. Embedded in a lighter form of chassis, they are trained to be indefatigable stalkers that will never end their hunt until they have found their quarry. The Bullpup, also from Landundar, from the official headquarters of the Tech Priests. This heavy cyber mastiff of steel is equipped with subsonic voxhalers that give off a perpetual growl calibrated at the exact pitch to evoke terror from normal humans. They have shock jaws that send a deadly, or at the very least, deeply painful jolt through anyone they lock their jaws onto. They can even be equipped with jaws that have chain blades in them instead of teeth, in case of any heavily armoured gangers or hoodlums amongst the crowds. Deployed to face the frequent food riots and uprisings, their presence supports the ever-vigilant and incredibly punitive forces of the Adeptus Arbites on that world. The Malfi Pattern Eliminator, a heavily modified canine that knows no restraint nor mercy. They are used as assassins. The likeness and scent of a target is implanted into their minds, and then they are set loose to hunt down and slaughter the target. They can have las weapons mounted on their shoulders, with chain blade jaws to finish anyone that the las weapons leave alive. Hard cases. Completely robotic cyber mastiffs, used by the Palatine forces of Hive-World Necromunda, employed as support for these law enforcers. They are deadly. the cyber mastiffs of the Sisters of Silence. The Sisters hunt down rogue psychers across the Imperium entire. On the black ships, they move from system to system to harvest those who may become astropaths, or if they are too weak, then they are set upon the table of the Emperor to maintain his mighty soul. These hunting mastiffs are deemed pursuer beasts, and are second to none in the entire galaxy. They are mostly cybernetic, with all of the power and speed of a set of power armor, and even going to the extent of sometimes being armed with flamers or melter guns. The higher-end versions of cybermastiffs can go to such an extent that, like a Thalax, they are more metal than organic, and the nervous system and a heavily modified, meaning cut to ribbons, brain are all that remain of the actual dog. In these cases, the handlers are not merely trusted masters of the canines. They use cortical interfaces called constructor arrays that permit them to collect and collate all input and train the cyber mastiffs to even be used by a normal baseline human by voice command alone. But the best results are always when these complex devices are used in the hunt directly. It prevents confusion and maintains control of the servitor beast. The cyber mastiff. The natural abilities of the canines are augmented to a terrifying degree, able to smell out a single scent miles away and then dart off at speeds that would outpace a car, then being able to use their enhanced speed, strength and devastating bite to bring down even ogrins or orcoids of prodigious size. The cyber mastiff is just another way to corrupt that which exists. As always, anything you can think of has been corrupted by chaos, and also by the ghoulish minds of the Adeptus Mechanicus. But do remember, always, that many a world has normal dogs. Humans first, and best friends. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. I hope you have enjoyed this brief glimpse into the strangeness of the Warhammer world. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.